Hello guys, I'm Grawshellar. Welcome to another decklist video in which I'm gonna speak about Queen from OP04. There's the bicolor leader, blue and yellow. So let's go and take a look. Alright, so this deck, it's pretty interesting, right? Because this leader has so much potential and the whole deck, it's kinda strong. So this might be one of the best decks in the meta. If you can play it well, I think you can become unstoppable, basically, because you can refill your lives super easy. You have a lot of removals because blue, it's gonna have so many removals with the cards, and there's some pretty insane cards on this deck. And then you have yellow cards that are gonna help you blocking, playing free blockers, and then having the refill, right, for your lives. So let's take a look at the leader card, Queen leader, 4 lives, like the same with all the bicolor leaders, right? And then its ability, it's quite interesting because it's difficult to understand, right? You have to give it 1 dawn, and when it attacks, at least 1 dawn, if your hand and life total, like if you sum it up, right? Like if you have, I don't know, 3 cards, 2 cards on hand, and then you have 1 or 2 lives, and the total of those is 4 or less, then you can continue with this text and then you draw 1 card. But if you have a cost 8 or higher character on your field, instead of that, you can put a card from the top of your deck to the top of your lives. So the condition is that your life and the hand total, right, needs to be 4 or less for both conditions. You just normally draw 1 card, but if you have a high cost character, instead of that, you gain 1 life, which is amazing. And as I said, if you can play that well, with the cards you have on this deck, you are gonna become unstoppable, because you're gonna end up winning because of resources, basically, because you can heal so much, right? Okay, so let's take a look to the cards. We have first 2 copies of Dracul Mihawk from OP1. This is one of those cards that are gonna help you, right, to have a cost 8 or more on the field to gain your lives. And this is basically a big cost that can remove a character, and it's pretty solid because it's a cost 9, a 9k, and then you're gonna place 1 character cost 7 or less to the bottom of the owner's deck, so you're gonna be able to remove pretty strong cards like, for example, the green Luffy blocker from the field deck, right? You can remove those annoying blockers, and so many cards that are 7 cost or less, like the Big Mom 7 cost, cards like that. You can just remove them, place this card, and then you can take into effect Queen, because you're paying 9, you still have 1 dawn, and you can use Queen's ability to gain 1 life. So 2 copies of this. Then we have 4 copies of Quixote Do Flamingo from OP1. This blocker is quite sick. Like, you're gonna have a lot of blockers on this deck, a lot of them. And this one is really good because you're gonna play it and then you can reorganize the top 5 cards from your deck, because it's the on-play ability. You look at the 5 cards from the top of your deck, you return them to the top or bottom in any order, one or the other, right? So if you don't like the cards that you're gonna draw in the next 5 turns, you can just throw them to the bottom, or if there's something that you want in the next turns, you reorganize the cards, right? And then you have really nice turns, and you have a blocker on the field, so it's quite nice. Also, you have Pira that also helps you organizing the cards, right? It does the exact same thing, and it's only 1 cost, so it's far cheaper if you need to do that, but you need to do other actions, right? So you have 3 copies of that. Then we have 4 copies of Hancock, another blocker. That's pretty nice. For 4, it's a 5k. You give it 1 dawn on block, or when attacking, you're gonna draw 1 card if you have 5 cards or less on hand. So pretty nice to be able to draw those extra cards, and it's a really nice blocker. So 4 copies of that. Okay, we have 3 copies of the Sogeking Secret from OP3. This card is really useful. It's a 7 cost, 6k but on play you're gonna return a character of 6 cost or less to the owner's hand. Then you do a refill, or not a refill, a refresh of hand, right? You draw 2 cards, then you trash 2 cards from your hand, so you can get rid of cards that you are not gonna be using. You get rid of a character. Pretty solid. Okay, we have 4 copies of the Boa Hancock blocker. This card is like the Brule, right, from yellow. It's a 3 cost, 1000 cost blocker, but the trigger is that you play this card, and of course this deck can trigger that super easily. You also have the Brule, right, because the most blockers that you can play for free from your lives, the more resilient you're gonna become, the more difficult to kill. So 4 copies of this. Then we have another 8 cost that can help you with the ability of Queen, and also is a pretty solid card for yellow, which is Charlotte Katakuri secret card. For 8 and 8k on play, you put 1 character with a cost of 8 or less top or bottom owner slave area. You can do so with your own cards, which can make for pretty sick combos. We will see that in a moment. But if you're gonna remove like a blocker from the opponent's field, right, because you're like dealing the last blows or something, you can just play that at the bottom, right, and they're gonna draw it, but they're not gonna be able to block with it. Or you can use that for this card, Campion Badge. This is a new card for OP04, which is a 2k counter at worst, right? But this trigger is insane. Like, you have the trigger that up to one of your opponent's leaders or characters cannot attack this turn. So you stop 1 attack with trigger, right? And you can play this, and then the next turn you play Katakuri Secret, put it on top of your lives, and then you do so again. So you're blocking another attack with this card. That's why this card is really good. You have 4 copies of this, obviously, because as I said, at worst it's gonna be a 2k counter, and at best you are gonna be triggering this from your lives and even returning it to your lives with other cards. So you're gonna be able to stop a lot of decks with this more than with a 2k counter, right? Okay, we also have a new card from OP4. We have 4 copies of the new Sanji Super Rare. This is a 4-drop 5k blocker that, as other cards on yellow, you have the trigger that you trash 1 card from your hand, you play the card. So it's a free blocker, essentially, right? Pretty solid. Okay, we have 4 copies of Yamato Super Rare from OP4. This is a new card, another 9 cost, right? And you can play this and your leader's ability, because you're gonna have those tendons to use. It's a 9k on play. You KO up to one of your opponent's characters with a cost that is equal or less than the total of lives from both your opponent and yourself, right? Like, you have to do some calculations there, but yeah, if you have 1 or less life cards, you may add up to 1 card from the top of your deck to your life area. What does this mean? You can essentially like heal 2 lives in 1 turn, right? Which is pretty insane. Imagine having 3 cards on hand, 1 life, right? Then you play this card. You now have 2 cards on hand and 2 lives, so your total is 4. You have another dawn, you put it on Queen, you attack with 6k, and you add another card to your lives, so you have 3 lives now, right? So that's pretty good. Also, you KO something with probably medium cost, like 4 or 5, can be a blocker, right? Opponent's blocker or something really annoying, so it's pretty good. Okay, 4 copies of Brule, as I said, another blocker that can be played for free, and yeah, it's just that good for that card to put it on your deck. You're gonna have 8 blockers. No, not 8. 12 blockers that can be triggered from your lives. So this deck is it's kinda dirty, but it's gonna be interesting, right? Playing with this deck and playing against this deck is gonna be tough. Okay, we have 4 copies too of 3000 worlds. Some decks have less. I feel like this card is really good. For 4, you just remove a cost 5 or less to the bottom of its owner deck. so another removal that's pretty nice. Also, the Gam Gam Red Rock, this card is insane. It's insane. I wouldn't even bother playing the trigger unless necessary, because for 6 cost you place up to 1 character at the bottom of its owner deck. That means you can get rid of 10 costs, Do Flamingos, Big Moms, Kaidos, whatever, right? Like, you can place any card at the bottom of its owner deck without any cost restriction. So you can get rid of anything. That's why this card is so nice to have. Okay, this is a card that you can probably change it, right, for like 2 low blockers. Like, you can change numbers a little bit, right, for some cards. But I feel like this card can be really good because you have so many cards that probably are on your hand with trigger, and it's kind of like expensive, right, to play them. So Bass Cat Mochi, I feel like this card can be really decent in both ways, like playing it normally or from trigger, right? For 2, you have that if you have less life than your opponent, you KO 1 character of cost 4 or less. So more removal to this deck, even if it's necessary, right? But the trigger, it's also pretty insane. You play up to 1 character with a cost 4 or less with trigger from your hand. So imagine having on your hand, like, I don't know, a Sanji blocker that you still have not used, or any blocker that's cost 3 but you have them on your hand, right? Then you can potentially have this on your lives, and you can play that card from your hand for free, and it's a blocker on the field, right? So that's also a pretty solid option. If not, you can just play it to get rid of a character, because most of the time you're gonna be playing with that having a low life to be able to refill yourself like every turn. But yeah, I think this is a good option. The 1 cost, I think it is, the low blocker, small blockers, are also a good option. I don't know, you can change numbers, like reducing some event numbers, maybe putting more Mihawks or Soccer Kings. I don't know, the numbers are up to you guys. I feel like this is a pretty strong deck. I like these cards. I want to try this in the simulator more to be able to say to you guys how it works, but it looks super promising and very, very dirty. Okay guys, that was everything. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to the channel if you like the content. Click one of the videos that you are seeing here. I'll be seeing you guys next video.